Hello and welcome to the sixth day of our reflections for the Aguinaldo Masses. The theme for today is obstacles to stewardship. People who want to live as Christian disciples and Christian stewards face several obstacles. The Philippines, although comprised of a majority Christian populace, is not inoculated from an increasing rise of secularism. It is a culture that contradicts the teachings of the Church in issues like artificial contraception, divorce, and abortion. At times, we can find it easy to ignore the spiritual realities and deny religion in its role in shaping the human and social values. That's why many would hear that telling us that the Church has to confine its voice in the private but not the public. And the public is to be left alone according to the voices of the intelligentsia or the market forces and so on and so forth. While the Church is only to confine itself in the private realm, not in the public realm. But of course, we do not agree with that. We always have this teaching that the Church is not only in terms of the private, but it also has to be in public. In the public place, it has to influence the sphere of the world. Because after all, Jesus came not only for the individual, but for the people. The second obstacle to stewardship is the struggle against selfishness and greed, which is almost constant. And for many, it is harder today to accept the challenge of stewardship precisely because we are in a culture that emphasizes, in a way, even too much emphasis on the materialism and secularism. So the struggle against empathy amidst poverty, injustices, and corruption. The lack of active involvement in the fight for a better Filipino society. So that's one thing also that is very obvious nowadays. We are not empathizing. And it is essential, therefore, that we make a special effort to understand the true meaning of stewardship and to live accordingly. So one of the things that we have to go against, number one, is to become countercultural. That is to struggle against our tendency to be selfish and to go against the inclination or the vice of greed, which is very prevalent among us because we are in a society that is increasingly becoming a secularist and materialistic society. A steward's way is a countercultural way. The life of a Christian steward imitates the life of Christ. And what is it? It is a selfless giving, which is very hard, very challenging, very difficult in many respects. Yet there is a joy that comes to those who wants to live such a way of life. And women and men who seek to live as stewards learn that all things work for good for those who love God. There are, of course, anecdotal stories. For example, the anecdotes is many of those who are generous, for example, they would tell us, despite their own, lack of material possessions, but still would want to be generous to others, they would always find that the Lord will take care of them and bless them and would always pay back, in some sense, the goodness that they have shared to others. And I think that is something that we need to recover, to be able to have that faith and trust in the Lord's generosity. to have that faith and trust in the providence of God, that God will take care of us, that God will take care of those who are responding and committing to the life of stewardship. When Mary heard the news about Elizabeth's pregnancy, she made haste to go and visit her cousin. She stayed with Elizabeth for 3 months. While the gospel is not explicit as to what Mary did during those 3 months, it has been an accepted interpretation that she served the needs of Elizabeth as she prepared to give birth to John at her old age. In other words, Mary responded to the call of help. Of course, what I mean call for help is that, of course, Elizabeth did not say, "Oh, Mary, help me," but she empathized. She was not apathetic to the concerns of others. She was able to recognize, without being told about it, that my cousin Elizabeth needs to be helped. It is a clear indication of Mary's selflessness. She was ready to travel long distance and be with her cousin who is in need. Now, both women, Elizabeth and Mary, believed that the word of God would come true in their lives. They are women of faith. And it was the faith of Mary, believing in the good news brought by the angel, which impels her to go and to serve. Now, this is very important. Without the element of faith, our sharing of our talent, time, and treasures might be reduced to social activism or social work. So, what differentiates us now is in terms of our faith. That's the important element. Okay, so we share our time, we share our talent, we share our treasures. But how do we distinguish this from social work or social activism? Of course, what will differentiate is the faith, the element of faith. While it is not bad in itself, social work is inadequate because the real motive for service is not about social change, but to bring the presence of God to others through our words and actions. Now, Mary felt the need of her old cousin Elizabeth during her time of need. Mary was sensitive to the need of others without being told, just like what happened during the wedding in Cana. Mary took it upon herself to be concerned with the lack of wine as to supply what was needed. She was not told by anyone, "Okay, Mary, we don't have wine, please ask your son." No. Some of us, nakikialam, pakialamera, no? In the sense nga, hilabtira. Pero there are also others who are may pakialam, no? Something like that, may concern. She's not just merely someone who wants to, put her fingers into things and for the sake of just doing those little pakikialam, no? Or nakikialam in Tagalog. I'm not sure anymore if my Tagalog is correct, but hindi siya nakikialam for the sake of, just being curious and parang hilabot lang. So, ang iya paghilabot is, it is out of real concern and real authentic love and the real, shall we say, authentic trust for of being of service to others. Mary felt the need of her old cousin Elizabeth during her time of need. She was sensitive to the needs of others without being told, just like what happened in the wedding in Cana. When she noticed that there is no more wine, she told her sons secretly, they have no wine. And so, of course, we can say that Mary took upon herself the responsibility of avoiding shame to the couple, because it will be shameful that in the middle of the celebration they will no longer have any wine, and the festivities will be aborted in the middle of the festivities. Now, in the modern society, our sin nowadays is not of omission or commission of evil deeds, Sometimes we don't really commit big sins, and sometimes we don't omit also sin, but we are apathetic to it. There's apathy to it. Wala tayong pakialam. With so many images of killings and corruptions in the news, there's a tendency for us to become callous. Reports of murder, extreme poverty, corruption, or injustice do not scandalize us anymore because we have come to the conclusion that it is just another day like any other day. What is new about it? After all. So we have already callous and we become apathetic. Wala tayong pakialam. So apathy together with greed has become the favorite pastime of our secular society. Apathy, one. Greed, another. So my dear friends, thank you for listening and looking forward to see you again on the 7th day of our Aguinaldo Reflections.